Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chor Kuan and I'm currently a doctor working in Australia. And today I'll be sharing with you the 5 main YouTube channels that I rely on for learning anatomy. I've struggled with this topic a lot throughout the years, and I found one of the most efficient ways to learn is through these YouTube videos where people explain it directly to you. It's like having a tutor one-on-one to explain difficult concepts and help you understand the topic. Before we go on, I'd like to give a word of caution about what not to do. In my early days, me and my friends, what we used to do was rote memorize things, and that wasn't particularly effective. But as time went on, I found that when I started trying to understand the key concepts behind the topic or the region of anatomy I was trying to learn, things became much easier. And these YouTube videos were very helpful when they tried to explain difficult concepts from beginner level to advanced levels. And today we'll be going from beginner level anatomy channels to more advanced anatomy level channels. One of the channels that I started learning anatomy with is the Noted Anatomist. It's actually one of the clearest YouTube channels in explaining difficult concepts. And Dr. Morton has done an extremely good job in doing these videos, and what I found helpful was the original diagrams here, and each video gives you a good understanding, and his explanations are very simple, using everyday examples, and each video here has very clear explanations, and the videos are relatively short, about 5 to 10 minutes each. And I found that this was useful to get a good big picture understanding of the topic. Especially if you're struggling with difficult concepts, I would start at this channel first because I found this the most helpful when you're starting out. For example, this is one of the videos that I was watching on the brachial plexus, and I found it very helpful because it showed the key relations and the diagrams were very clear. So this is some place you would go if you wanted a simplified explanation of the key anatomical points before moving on to more advanced videos. What I found very helpful about this channel was every video started off with a very clear what I would like to learn in this video, and it was very helpful, especially when you're just starting out. Another channel that I recommend is Dr. Bhanu Prakash's YouTube channel, where he has a huge medical library of many medical videos, but what I found very helpful were the anatomy videos. There are a collection of original anatomy animations which actually highlights very difficult points that you can't find from the textbooks. It shows you the clear anatomical relations. For example, the first video that I came across of his was this video on the anatomy of the axillary artery, where he easily breaks down the 3 parts of the axillary artery in a very easy manner. And another good video example from him is where I was learning the anatomy of the middle ear. I found this video very easy to understand. It showed the relations, and his unique way of explaining the topic really resonates with me. He explains the difficult area of anatomy in a very unique way that I've not seen other people do, and it's much easier to understand when you have someone to explain the concept and highlight all the different relations in this difficult area of anatomy to learn. Why I found this channel very interesting was because he had very simplified diagrams that were original, and he has a very unique way of explaining things in a way that you can remember the concepts rather than just rote memorizing. So that's one of my recommendations. And at the end of each video, he also has a good clinical applications that he goes through of the anatomy, which further reinforces that learning. The videos were generally about 5 to 10 minutes, easy enough to learn in a small study session. The channel that I found helpful was Armando Hasudungan's channel, where if you've not come across it, it's actually a very good channel with hand-drawn YouTube tutorials on anatomy and physiology, and I found it very easy to understand because having someone draw out a difficult area of anatomy was very memorable. And do check it out for the good diagrams. If you do want to learn physiology as well, this is also my top resource for learning physiology, and I would recommend it. I found it helpful, especially when learning very difficult areas of anatomy, especially like cranial nerves, where having someone draw it out makes it more memorable, and you can easily visualize these cranial nerves in your head, and when you want to recall that information, it just clicks with you. Another channel that I found helpful was Taim Talks Med, where he has very clear 3D diagrams of difficult areas of anatomy. I found this especially helpful when I was learning the anatomy of the brain, anatomy of the skull, or even the carotid artery, where he would show both 3D and 2D diagrams, schematic diagrams on top of the 3D diagrams, which were very helpful. And here's an example of this. He gives very clear 3D diagrams to highlight areas that you will have difficulty visualizing in your anatomy atlases. Looking at it in 3D gives you a whole different dimension and makes it more relatable, especially if I wanted to know the course of a nerve, the course of an artery or a vein in relation to the bones of the skull, for example. Or even learning the anatomy of the upper limb or lower limb makes it very easy to visualize the movements of the muscles and try to get a good understanding around the topic. Generally, I found the channel very helpful and interesting because of its colorful diagrams and also the key points highlighted. Another channel that I found helpful was the Anatomy Knowledge channel, where they would go through difficult regions of anatomy, especially drawing out the courses of nerves and their relations, or courses of arteries and veins and their relations in a 2D schematic. And this makes it even more memorable, but the amount of detail that he goes through is actually very good for exams, and it's a bit more advanced, so I would recommend looking at the other channels first to get a good understanding, and then coming to this to get the more advanced knowledge that you'll need for the exams. And having someone draw it out and then trying to draw it out yourself as well will be very helpful for understanding and recalling all this information. For example, some of the helpful videos, I found this video where I was trying to learn the anatomy of the trochlear nerve, or even this video where I was trying to learn the ciliary ganglion. You can see all the relations being drawn out and even the difficult areas of anatomy being pointed out. Right, and so those are the 5 YouTube channels that I would recommend. And from the beginner tier, we have 3 YouTube channels that I would recommend. These are the channel by Dr. Morton, the Noted Anatomist, Dr. G. Bhanu Prakash's YouTube channel, and the Armando Hasudungan's channel. So these are where I would start if I was first learning anatomy. And then when I want to go on to a more advanced level of learning, I would move on to the next 2 channels, mainly Taim Talks Med's channel, where he has very good 3D diagrams with 2D schematics that explain difficult areas and relations of anatomy, and at the Anatomy Knowledge channel, where they have very comprehensive hand-drawn diagrams to highlight things that will likely pop out on the exam. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.